Hello, Browns fans. There's been a lot of discussion about one specific area of our team after our last matchup that deserves an in-depth look. But before you do, be sure to hit that like button and join us to stay up to date with what's going on behind the scenes and beyond. We all know that the Browns defense has been the cornerstone of this team for a while now, but in Week 13, we saw some cracks. The defense certainly had its moments, but overall, it wasn't enough to stop the Denver Broncos as they came away with a 41-32 victory. Let's take a look at the defensive performance and see how each unit stacked up. Going into this game, we all expected Myles Garrett to continue his dominant play. After his explosive performance against the Steelers in Week 12, we thought he would be ready for another monster game. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Garrett couldn't bring down Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, and the rest of the defensive line didn't fare much better. While the pressure was there, Garrett was 5.06 yards behind Nix on several occasions. It wasn't enough to disrupt his rhythm. Nix looked comfortable moving around the pocket, and despite the constant pressure, the Browns failed to capitalize. The inability to convert pressure into sacks or stop the Broncos on third down hurt the defense significantly, especially in a high-scoring game like this one. The linebacker room has been a bit shaky this season, especially with the injury to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. It's clear his absence is being felt, but the remaining linebackers stepped up in Week 13. Jordan Hicks was the standout, recording 12 tackles against the Broncos. Devin Bush and Mohamed Diabate combined for 9 tackles as well, showing they're doing their part to help the defensive line and secondary. One thing that was missing, however, was the turnovers that Owusu-Koramoah typically generates. The linebackers are holding their own, but they aren't providing the same playmaking ability that we're used to seeing from this group. With one Thornhill out, Rodney McLeod was called in to start, and he did not disappoint. He played solid coverage throughout the game and even came close to grabbing his 19th career interception. McLeod continues to show that he still has a lot left in him, even as he nears retirement. Alongside him, Brent Delpit and Ronnie Hickman were solid, helping the secondary in coverage. Delpit finished with 6 tackles, while Hickman added 3. Despite their efforts, the Broncos were able to pick apart the secondary late in the game, particularly with their passing attack, which resulted in several big plays. Denzel Ward remains one of the most consistent and best defenders on this team. He's been exceptional all season, and in Week 13, he was no different. Ward finished with 2 deflected passes and an interception, continuing to make plays when the Browns needed it most. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The biggest issue came when the Browns allowed a big play to Marvin Mims in the third quarter, which led to a touchdown. Head coach Kevin Stefanski later said it wasn't blown coverage, but it's hard to see it as anything other than a miscommunication between the players. Martin Emerson Jr. also struggled in coverage, particularly against Courtland Sutton. It was a confusing call to see Emerson, who isn't known for his coverage skills, matched up against Sutton, one of the Broncos' top receivers. As the Browns continue to slide in the standings, eyes are turning toward the offseason and the 2025 NFL Draft. While many fans have their sights set on a quarterback, the reality is that the top 2 QBs, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, are already projected to be gone by the time the Browns are on the clock. So, what does that mean for Cleveland's draft plans? The latest mock draft from The Athletic has the Browns selecting Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham with the 8th overall pick. While most Browns fans would love to see a QB drafted, Graham is an intriguing option. He's known for being a dominant force in the trenches, both as a run stuffer and pass rusher. In college, Graham logged 108 total tackles, 18 tackles for loss, and 9 sacks, numbers that would make an immediate impact at the next level. If the Browns are forced to pivot away from a QB, adding Graham to their defensive line could help revitalize a unit that has struggled to generate pressure recently. So, Browns fans, what do you think? The defense had its moments but ultimately came up short against the Broncos. Myles Garrett's lack of impact and the issues in the secondary raised some questions, especially with the season winding down. And as we look toward the future, do you think the Browns should focus on adding to the defense, like Mason Graham, or should they try to address their quarterback situation, despite the top prospects being off the board? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's talk about the reality the team is facing as we head into the final stretch of the season. Unless you've been living under a rock, you already know that the Browns' playoff chances are, well, non-existent. At 3-9 with just 5 games left in the season, Cleveland is in a brutal situation. They still have to face some of the toughest teams in the league, the Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, and Miami Dolphins. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which the Browns emerge from these contests with enough wins to make a real push for the playoffs. But let's talk about that for a second. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, as we saw in the latest season of HBO Max's Hard Knocks, remains optimistic. He's been rallying the team, giving speeches about how if they want to make it, they have to win every game left on the schedule. Now, that sounds great in theory, but after the Browns lost to the Denver Broncos in Week 13, the idea of running down the schedule seems more like a fantasy than a legitimate possibility. Now, I know what you're thinking, anything can happen in the NFL. We've seen wild comebacks and wild reversals before. But let's be real here, the Browns' chances of making the postseason are as slim as they come. ESPN's playoff projections put Cleveland at a 0% chance of making the playoffs. Yes, 0%. And not only are they at the bottom of the AFC North standings, they're also behind teams like the New York Jets, New England Patriots, and Las Vegas Raiders in playoff probability. To make matters worse, ESPN projects the Browns to finish the season with a 5-12 record, which would be their worst since their 0-16 debacle in 2017. Now, the question is, how did we get here? It's not like the team hasn't struggled. The defense has had flashes of brilliance, and we've seen moments where the offense has clicked. But injuries, inconsistent play, and a lack of consistent quarterback play have all contributed to this disappointing season. And let's not forget, with Deshaun Watson out with a torn Achilles, things have only gotten tougher. The Browns are now essentially forced to rely on defense and whatever they can muster on offense to try to stay competitive, but with a schedule like theirs, it's an uphill battle. Let's break down the remaining games. Kansas City Chiefs, let's face it, this team is Patrick Mahomes, and despite some close games this season, betting against Mahomes is a risky move. The Browns' defense has played tough at times, but Mahomes is very good. Pittsburgh Steelers, this one's personal. The Browns have a chance to get revenge on their division rivals, but with the Steelers fighting for a playoff spot, don't expect them to give up. Baltimore Ravens, another tough divisional opponent. The Ravens are playing solid football and will want revenge after the Browns beat them earlier in the season. Miami Dolphins, Miami's offense is back in full swing, and that spells trouble for any defense. The Browns will have their hands full trying to contain Tua Tagovailoa and company. So what does all this mean for the Browns? Simply put, it means their playoff hopes are hanging by a thread, and even that thread is starting to fray. We can talk about what could happen if there's an epic collapse from the other AFC teams, but realistically, the Browns are facing a brutal road ahead. And with the way things are going this season, the odds are stacked against them. But here's the silver lining, even if Cleveland doesn't make the playoffs this year, the final 5 games could still serve as a test. A test of character. A test to see how much fight the team still has. It'll be a great opportunity for the younger players to step up, for the defense to continue to prove they can hold their own with the best, and for the team to show that even with their backs against the wall, they're not going to just give up. So, Browns fans, what do you think? Do you guys believe there's any chance of a miracle run to the playoffs, or do you think it's time to start looking ahead to next year's offseason and draft? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, be sure to like this video if you agree, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for all the latest Cleveland Browns updates. Keep the faith, and I'll see you next time. Go Browns!